Hi folks, Rich here and I'm with Richard Bassett. How are you, Rich?
Morning, yeah, very well, thank you.
It's good to see you.
It's all good.
Folks, the Nambour Show, it's almost upon us, which means if you're thinking of putting an entry into this year's exhibition, you better get your stuff together. And Rich is here to help us this morning, just to talk about, first of all, about how to identify the categories and perhaps what Richard's going to actually look for whilst he does the judging this year. So, mate, you've been a judge for how long?
Oh, about 14 years now.
Is that right?
For PSQ Society of Queensland.
Yes. Oh, great.
So I looked at a few images and
I reckon you
given
have.
a few tips out over time.
All right, mate. So the basics. So someone who might be entering this competition this year for the first time, what is some basic stuff that if they want their image to be viewed as a potential prize winner, what are you looking for?
Well, normally you've been asked, there'll be a brief of what the subject is.
The category
the
subject.
category or subject. So obviously if it's people, we want to see some people in it.
Yes.
As we've got here, other than birds, you know.
Right, and I guess that's where you have to be a little bit careful because some of us class, say, a photograph of our budgie as a portrait, and I guess in some sense that's true.
Yes.
But when entering a competition, it's very important that you literally take the category at face value. So portraits traditionally here, we're looking for people.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, people. So yeah, if it is people, you need to see a person, or at least sometimes it's people, singular or plural, or sometimes a person, or a portrait of a person. So that's okay, as long as you meet the criteria. And then our other subjects where you've got open, well then you can, that's where your artistic license can come in and you can do various styles of photography.
And interpret the theme differently as well in some of those open categories as well.
That's right, you can start to think outside the box a little bit, you know. It's like, as in the example we were talking about before about our backyard, it could be in your yard, it could be in your neighbourhood,
or in the
state
state.
of Queensland.
That's right.
Yeah. So don't be too constrained by those things. Where you can move, go for sure, move.
Great. Okay, let's talk about landscapes because look, I've been to a lot of camera clubs and some of the real basic stuff, you know, still isn't being adhered to.
Yes.
Tell me, a good landscape, what's the first thing that you captures your eye?
A good landscape generally needs to be sharp in the foreground, the midground, and through to the background, so we can see right through the scape.
Yes.
If you do have a distinct horizon, however, whether it's often the sea, make sure that that's nice and level, because if it's tipping one way or the other, it's very off-putting to the viewer. So that's a little key, and it's usually picked up very quickly in competition.
By a competition judge.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So watch that, and that's also relevant to when you do put them into a mount, as we're going to show you shortly, that you do actually put it into the frame square. So
that's a great point, Rich. So not just getting it straight in camera and in your edit, don't forget when you mount your images for competition, just slightly having them out askew can look like you've taken the picture without the straight horizon.
Yeah, you've done all the hard work.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
Great
all
advice.
the hard work, and then your presentation. It's a bit like brushing your hair and cleaning your teeth. You know, that's little bits on the end that make all
that makes all the difference.
Yeah.
All right, now the other thing that I do notice, which also crosses that boundary between perhaps not being a great photo and being creative, is exposure, like low-key, high-key images.
Yes.
So what's the main message here? Is it to make it absolutely relevant, or make sure it's noticeably either over or underexposed if that's your intention?
Yes, it's. I suppose you can have high key or low key for that matter, but the exposure still has to be correct. So, although high key is very light and bright, the important things are still within that range where we get the details coming through. So you don't want to overexpose high key. You want it to be high key, but within that exposure range.
And still being able to see detail.
Yeah, I haven't got an example of that, but you'll understand what we're saying.
Well, perhaps a low-key image. Let's talk about a low-key image, such as the butterfly.
Yeah, well, see, we're here on a very dark background, but that also then helps separate the subject and allow it to be like forward in the image and quite visible to see.
Correct. Okay, well, there's some great advice there, Rich. Now, the final thing, folks, that if you want your images to stand out on the day of competition, it's the mounting process and how we mount the images.
Yep.
Rich, just talk us through about what catches the eye of the judge when we talk mounting, because it's not always just putting a black mat around it or putting your image on a black bit of card.
That's correct. Although black is probably the safe kind of neutral option for your photos, but we can have situations where you have a blue sea ocean there with our pelican.
Oh.
Tight crop in the frame, make sure you fit it into the frame when you do actually mount it. But there's a bit of blue on blue, so a bit of artistic license if that's what,
I do like that. I like
what
that a
takes
lot.
you fancy. That's great.
And I guess complementing the images
Yes.
is the other thing. Like here we have a beautiful desert scene, but here we just put that terracotta around it.
It has a change or
What a difference.
changes the view
Now,
of the image. Yeah.
that's going to get the judge's eye straight away, going to that little bit of extra effort to say, hey, I recognise that within my artwork, there's a tonal value there that I can also play off.
And you want it to
mounting
kind
work.
of bleed into your photo, not be bright and shiny and take away from the photo. We're not judging the mount, we're judging the actual image. But yeah, a little bit of colour tone can be quite beneficial.
We forget about on the day of
It's
competition.
important that we recognise your art for you.
Yes.
So there is a process where you can download a label when you enter your images, and then affix those onto the back of your frame when you mount them. And some have an arrow, or make sure if the thing's a little bit difficult to read, that the foliage or sometimes can't be misinterpreted. You have the arrow pointing to the top, so you want that's the image.
But it's very important that we know the artist's name, what category that the image is intended to be judged in, to keep that process nice and clear and concise.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, Rich.
Applications need to be in there.
Thanks, Rich. It's
No
both
worries,
been
mate.
great. Some terrific advice for you, even if you're entering into the competition for the first time. That's some great info. Now, folks, in the video notes below, you're going to see the days that the competition images must be in at the Nambour Showgrounds, plus the days of competition, etc. And we really hope to see you there. Bye, folks.
Good luck. Thank
Bye.
you.